What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen someone get offended by? I told a neighbor who was wearing a tuxedo that he looked great and he got offended AF as if I was saying he usually looks like crap. Fine, I'll never compliment anyone again. I had a coworker like this. He looked impeccable in a suit, and I complimented his style. He thought I was insulting him. He asked if I was. I assured him that I wasn't and my compliment was sincere, but he still didn't believe me. I hope one day he looks back and realizes that he really did have amazing style and develops more confidence in his personal choices / those around him. We had a good relationship, so it would have been weird if I had been insulting him.
My kids were yelled at by some loony lady for looking up something on their phones at a Christmas tree lighting that hadn't started yet. Something about being glued to those damn phones and not enjoying real life and the true Christmas spirit. I told her to mind her own business and got told off for being a bad parent who let my kids, who were teens, not little, be raised by technology. We didn't even know this woman. Her husband came and dragged her off, apologizing. Now that I think about it, some alcohol might have been involved here too.
I sat down on a bench with a school friend, and we looked at memes for 15 minutes while waiting for my mom. When we got up to leave, an old lady came out of nowhere and started screaming at us for not offering the bench to her and her husband. There was another bench 2 meters away, and they were standing somewhere behind us. Also, they never asked.
While watching a movie on TV with my mother, it was preceded by the usual disclaimer: this film contains content that viewers may find disturbing. To this, she scoffed and mockingly said, "What, in case people get triggered?" 20 minutes into the movie, an animal dies, and she got upset, exclaiming, "What, you didn't tell me they'd be hurting animals in this movie?" Well, you were warned, and you made fun of the warning. Who's triggered now?
One time, I saw this really out-of-shape lady start demanding that someone bring her a wheelchair while she was ordering in McDonald's. The employee said, "We don't have a wheelchair." So she said, "Are you declining me medical attention? I'm gonna pass out right here," and she continued to make a whole scene. I wore a hoodie with a skeleton on it to work in October. Someone complained to HR or something, and my boss told me to take it off because someone said it offended their religion. Are Christians afraid of bones? In elementary school, plans were made for a Halloween party. Christian parents and teachers complained about it. The event got canceled, then reinstated a few days later as a harvest festival where kids could wear costumes, play games, and get candy. This was enough to please the complainers. It was literally the same thing, but with a different name and only fall decorations, not Halloween. It's been almost 30 years, and I still find it crazy.
Where is this, Utah? Usually only Mormons and the like have a problem with Halloween.
Texas, and no Mormons were involved. There was a huge fundamentalist / evangelical population in our neighborhood, but we had a few JWs as well. Allegedly, those were the main demographics of the people who complained. We also had plenty of parents who would have just refused to let their kids go to a Halloween party, and plenty of kids who would have been proud to say, "My parents / pastor / Sunday school teacher said Halloween is of the devil, and that's why I'm not going," and trying to get you to agree with them. Held a door for a lady, and as she passed me, she scolded me for thinking she couldn't figure out how to open a door. I was just trying to be nice. I had a coworker who had a swear jar in the office and expected us to put money in it if we swore because it offended him. I told him that I was a devil worshiper and that I had to take the Lord's name in vain 13 times a day as part of my religion, and that in demanding money for swearing was a form of blackmail. I called my lawyer friend, and the words "that offends me" are not a legal basis for any action whatsoever. I've said some pretty basic things about dogs and cats that implied they weren't equivalent to human children, and people responded as if I tossed a panda bear into a vat of boiling oil. I used to work in a supermarket, and a customer was bagging their groceries using the store's Bag for Life, which looked brand new and still had the tag attached. I didn't want to charge him again for a bag he'd already bought, so I kindly suggested he might want to remove the tag. I explained that we're supposed to charge if we see a customer with a bag with a tag. We know the code and don't need to scan it. The dude went APE, full-on rage, face turning red. He was furious that I dared to tell him what to do, calling me pathetic for working in a shop, and more. The guy was so offended I thought he was going to have a heart attack. While he was busy stomping off and insulting me, I accidentally double-scanned his coffee. He was too preoccupied to wait for his receipt, so he never found out.
Me buying shampoo before we had run out of shampoo. Me not properly cleaning the bathroom. She refused to explain what I did wrong. Me asking for a list of chores she'd like me to do. Apparently, adults don't need lists. Me saying that the Nilla wafers in my homemade banana pudding still being crunchy would add a nice texture. Me picking moss from the forest. A door breaking when she used it after my dad fixed it. And many others. She is a very angry person who believes that her views of the world are the only ones that matter because she has experienced the most trauma of everyone around her.
My mom had to go talk to a principal to help them manage issues they were having with an area not under the principal's jurisdiction. They looked over the issues and came up with potential solutions, and then went to talk in her office to get her opinion. The principal then started screeching that they were trying to intimidate her and attacking her. Her reasoning for this was that they were standing up while talking to her. There were literally no other chairs in the office apart from the one the principal was sitting in.
When you don't like a character in a book that a lot of other people like. I've literally watched two people get in a fist fight over Severus Snape. To be fair, some alcohol was involved.
Had an argument with my ex-girlfriend, where after a few minutes I realized I was wrong, so I said, "You know what, actually thinking about it I can completely see how that was my mistake and I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry." And she thought I was being sarcastic, so I said, "No really, I'm being 100% genuine right now. I really am apologetic." She thought I was still being sarcastic.
I had a new puppy. A puppy. I was walking him in the park by my house. It is a pretty good-sized park and has several wide paved paths you could walk or ride your bike on. There I am, walking my puppy, happy as can be. Some middle-aged lady comes slowly riding her bike up behind us as my puppy decides he's going to sniff the sniffs on the opposite side of the path. I quickly move out of her way and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." She looks at me, disgusted, and says, "Ugh. Well, I should hope so." It took me a second to recover from the shock of this woman's venom about the puppy that was in her way for barely an instant, but as I watched her slowly ride past, I couldn't help myself and said, "You know what, lady? You." She gave me a surprised gasp and rode off.
Our cat hissed at my friend's wife. We actually had little warning signs up around the house for this event saying, "Don't pet this cat, she hates everyone." She sauntered away from the party, sat by herself for an hour, and snapped at her husband when he asked what was wrong. When talking to Jeff a few days later, I asked if everything was okay, and he said, "Oh yeah, she just felt like the cat made her look like an idiot." Some social justice warrior got offended I was drinking milk while walking down the street. She yelled at me that showing off being able to digest lactose as an adult is white supremacy. First, it's chocolate milk. Second, I'm Asian. People with difficult to pronounce names who get offended when other people mispronounce them. A taxi driver once kicked me out of the car because I noticed he forgot to turn the meter on and told him I would have totally paid for the full ride by adding some cash to the total, but for some reason, it was my fault and I made him forget. He stopped the car and told me to get out. I could never figure this one out. I had a coworker who was offended that I wasn't upset that people assume I'm Hispanic and consequently get my name wrong all the time. They're offended that I'm not offended. Like, make that make sense, please? For what it's worth, I told her, why would I need to be upset? You're offended enough for the both of us. And then she complained to HR. I provided customer support for an international software as a service company that included emojis for selection in part of their platform. One of my coworkers received a bad rating on an interaction from a user because there was no USA flag emoji, and thus we were considered un-American. Note that we didn't have any other flag emojis either, so it's not like there was any particular country singled out here.
I remember a while back when someone got offended because I had friends to hang out with other than them. Like, of course, I have other friends. Not everything is about one person, and you usually try to spend time with everyone you know, not just picking favorites. That person was an energy vampire, and I removed them from my life before I was sucked dry. Note to self, if someone gets offended about the fact that you give other people company, they are not worth hanging around.
I own an auto shop, and I had this extremely hard-working mechanic, let's call him Joe, who was very mannered and kept to himself. He would arrive promptly at 7:45 a.m., complete his assigned tasks, and leave at 5. Even when there was nothing to work on by the end of the day, he would grab a broom and sweep all 4 bays, whether he worked on them or not. One day, while helping him and my other employees sweep the shop after an extremely busy day and power washing the floors, I accidentally touched his shoes with the broom bristles. He freaked out, yelling, "Man, you can't be doing that, you just ruined my life." I quit. He stormed off, ran across the street to wait for the bus, and didn't even ask about his pay for the week. My other employees and I were left speechless, not knowing what had just transpired. The next day, my master tech, who was in his 50s, came in and asked about Joe. I explained what had happened the night before, and he told me that apparently, there's this idea and belief that if you sweep near someone and the bristles touch their feet, it brings bad luck. And well, friends, that was all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, let me know with a thumbs up so that YouTube can share these stories with more people. Remember to hit the bell icon to be the first to know when we upload a new video. See you next time.